So say I'm going to court on behalf of Stevie, right? Mm-hmm. And I actually didn't see anything. How much of a witness am I? I'm just saying, well, this is what he told me. You're it's nothing, right?
Nothing, absolutely nothing. And that's, I wanted to talk about that because I did get a question from somebody on Twitter asking to sort of explain hearsay in depth, because they were having a hard time sort of wrapping their mind around it. And I completely understand. You're right there with every law student that has to learn hearsay, or the rule against hearsay in evidence. So you kind of have to start with like the definition of hearsay. So hearsay means an out-of-court statement offered to prove the truth of the matter asserted, which is just mumbo jumbo. But basically, so you can take it as an out-of-court statement. So it's not, it hasn't been given under oath. And it's offered basically to prove XYZ happened. So we can take a concrete example. Io wants to testify saying Amber said Johnny hit her.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That is, if Io is allowed to say that in court as testimony, Amber told me Johnny hit her. You have to kind of freeze frame and do an analysis of whether or not that fits into the definition of hearsay. And the reason is you have to determine why is that statement being offered? Is that statement being offered to prove that Johnny did in fact hit Amber? Or is it being offered for some other reason? Because sometimes there are other reasons why that statement could be offered. Mm-hmm. There are situations where somebody's mental state is at issue, and it can be that the statement is being used to show, the effect on somebody's mental state, or it's being used to show like, their own mental state or something. But that kind of a statement in this case would be used for the definition of hearsay, to prove, Io saying Amber told me Johnny hit her would be most likely used to prove Johnny did in fact hit her. So that is a statement that is hearsay that's not allowed at trial. Not allowed at trial. So if everything that and then there are a whole bunch of exceptions to the rule against hearsay, because hearsay is not just the words that somebody speaks. It's also documents, like any kind of notes, any kind of, medical records technically are hearsay, but there's an exception to the rule for things like medical records, financial records, business records, basically. And that's just one example. Wow. But general statements, by these friends, if all they can do is testify as to what they know only because of what they were told by someone else, that's all going to be hearsay. That's not going to be admissible. And if that's the only thing that they can say at trial, there's no point in bringing them as a witness.
And that's why that's why they're not going to be there, because no one saw anything. Josh saw nothing. Io saw nothing.
Right.
Yes. Rocky essentially didn't see anything.
Yeah. The only thing that they could do is, Io was speaking on the phone with Amber, or, that night. Right. So Io could testify to how Amber sounded. Did Amber sound panicked? Did Amber sound, flustered, or, those kinds of things, because Io can testify as to his experience of talking on the phone with Amber, not necessarily for a reporting on the accuracy of what actually happened, in those other events, but what Io was picking up from that conversation.
Right.
Well, that makes so much. That panel, that makes so much sense to me, because wouldn't it stand to reason then that if Io Tillett-Wright was definitely present on the phone call, talking to Amber, talking to Johnny, so can testify to his experience of that phone call in that situation.
Yes.
And Amber doesn't want him to speak or to be in court and to be examined, because the truth of what happened, the truth of his experience, not what he said in his statements, not what was, Ted told to the media, but what the actual truth was of his experience. If he offers that up as the actual experience that was had, then maybe that's contradictory to what she's saying, and she doesn't want that to come in.
Yeah.
And
it could very well be. Yeah, it could very well be also that. And here's the thing about putting somebody like Io on the stand is that then on cross-examination, all of these questions of, you didn't see any injuries, you didn't, you know, you didn't hear any hits, you didn't hear any screaming, did you see her the next day? Did you FaceTime with her? Did you try FaceTiming with her? You know, like, did you see anything? Did you see any injuries the next day? Did you hear anything in the, you know, in her voice the next day? Or, you know, like, or what about this when you guys were jumping and doing cartwheels? Or I'm making that up, but like, you know what I mean? It's like things like that are just poking holes. So those kind of people are, the testimony that they would be giving is not particularly helpful to her, but they can do a lot of damage because, you know, if they're being offered as this person that like witnessed stuff, then then Johnny's side gets up and says, but you didn't witness anything. So who, like, this is your best, this is your best, and you saw nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's great to know.